All right, we are on Chaf Hayam and Beis. We're in the two dots right after the Mishnah. Halokech min anachtom b'Surya. A lot of the Gemara tonight will be familiar to you from the Bavli. Halokech min anachtom b'Surya. Some of you buy it from a baker in Syria, meaning you bought. We waited for you. I stalled till you got here. I stalled till you got here.
Babysitting. Thanks.
We're on Chaf Hayam and Beis. Halokech min anachtom b'Surya. Somebody who buys from a baker in Syria, tzarich lafish chalas demai. Divrei Gamliel, take off chalas demai. In other words, he has to assume that challah was not taken off and take off challah. Divrei Gamliel. Chachamim say, look, you don't have to take off challah misafik. Rabbi Chananya Kumi Rabbi Mona. Rabbi Chan said in front of Rabbi Mona, wait a minute. Rabbi Gamliel is saying, good. You do have to take off challah misafik. Matameun the Rabbana. What's the logic of the rabbis who say you do not? Amar Lei, so he said, Kishem Shlo Nechshedu Yisrael ala Truma, Beretz Ba'ochet. I'll tell you, just like Jews are not suspect not to take off Truma in Eretz Yisrael, meaning the Mai in Eretz Yisrael never pertains to Truma, only to Meiser, right? Because all Amaratim take off Truma in Eretz Yisrael. So just like they all take off Truma in Eretz Yisrael, so to Kach Lo Nechshedu Achala B'Surya. They're not suspect not to take off the Challah in Syria, they take off the Challah. Rabbi Yavin Bar Chia asked. Rabbi Bar Chia asked a very good question. Boy, Kimodat Omar, just like you said, Shtei Chalos b'Surya, you take off two chalos in Syria, one to give to the Kohen, one to burn. The Kavos is simply one should have to take off two Shtei Trumas b'Surya. Take off two Trumas in Syria. Why not two Trumas? Take off two Trumas, one to burn and one to give to a Kohen. If you do it by Challah, why shouldn't you do it by Truma? So Rabbi Chagai said, I'll tell you why. This already is a complication which we've seen previously, but never in this context. Challah ain't achrei klum. Challah is not missing anything. There's nothing after Challah. Challah is the final, the ultimate, the final matana given from food stuff, right? It's the last thing given to a kohen. Truma yesh achrei klum. Truma is not the ultimate, nor is even, for that matter, the penultimate. If after Truma there's Meiser and there's Challah, right? Okay, but what specifically concerns us right now is the Meiser. Truma yesh achrei klum. There is a procedure which must be done after you take off Truma. If you're going to say that you have to tell a person to take off two Trumos, okay, the first Truma is Truma, but what's the second Truma? No. If you told a person to take off two Trumas in Syria, just like you would take off two Chalos, right? What? No. The second Truma is really what? It's really, in fact, Tevel. Because the Truma's already been taken off. So this is Tevel, not complete Tevel, obviously, because Truma's been taken off. But what has to be taken off on the second Truma? On the second Truma, what must be taken off? Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni, right? Because the second Truma is not real Truma, right? It's just show Truma to give to the Kohen, right? Because the first one's the one which is burnt. The second one's the one he gives to the Kohen, but it's not real Truma. So since it's not real Truma, it must be tithed. Real Truma doesn't have to be tithed. The Kohen eats it straight away. But this fake Truma would have to be tithed. I have to take Meisus off it. So therefore, again, the Gemara says, if you say take off a second Truma, Nimtzis also Truma Shumar, which will come out the second Truma which you're taking off, Hitvula Meisrus. It's lacking its Meiser. So therefore, it'd be a problem. You give it to the Kohen and the Kohen wouldn't realize he's not allowed to eat it as is. He's got to take off Meiser before he eats it. Okay, so it says the Gemara, period. Bigash and Gamliel. We're continuing the same vein. Pirush Gamliel, around Gamliel Bar Rebbe. And Gamliel Bar Rebbe wanted to lahanigas at the Mai B'Suria. He wanted to institute the Mai in Syria. Now that means that he wanted to require that one takes Trumas and Meiser off of the Mai, no, not Truma, Meiser off of the Mai in Syria, just like Eretz Yisrael. Before, a few lines ago, we saw that there's such a concept as Chalas Demai in Syria. That's true. That if you're not sure if the person from whom you acquired the dough took off the Challah or not, you take off Challah. But he wanted to go a step further. He wanted to say that you take off Meiser as Demai on grain, even in Syria. Okay? Because he said, look, it's similar to Eretz Yisrael. We do take off dough. Are supposed to take off Trumas and Meiser in Syria. Let's also institute Demai as a practice in Syria. So it sounds good, right? Rabbi Yosha did not permit him to do so. Why not? Amar Le, Rabbi Yosha said to him, Me'ata, you know why? Because if that's the case, Yachushu HaKohanim HaChaloson. The Kohanim will get Challah. When they get Challah, what would they have to do if there was Demai in the din of Demai in Syria? They would have to meister their Challah, because it means they have to suspect that the Amaratzim who give them the Challah didn't take off meiser from it. So if they didn't take off meiser from it, so they're going to have to meister it themselves. Okay. Now there's an obvious that's nice, but there's an obvious question on that. The obvious question that the Gemara is going to ask, I just want to point out how blatant it is that, wait a minute, what about Eretz Yisrael? In Eretz Yisrael, there is a din of Demai, and what about over there? Don't the Kohanim Stam in Eretz Yisrael have to suspect that maybe the Challah is not properly rectified? Why is it, you said in Syria, we didn't make a takana that you have to take Demai, because then the Kohanim, when they receive their Challah, it would be incumbent upon them to take off their Demai. Okay, fine, nice. So in Eretz Yisrael too, there shouldn't be Demai, because if there's Demai, when the Kohanim get their Challah, they would have to take off Demai. What should be there should be no qualitative difference in this respect between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. It's a very good question, right? The Gemara is going to ask it. It's not my question. So it says the Gemara, Amar Le mi'ati yachushu HaKohanim al Chaloson. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's not the question yet. That's Rabbi Yosha speaking. That's Rabbi Yosha saying to Gamliel, don't make a takana on the Mai in Syria, because then the Kohanim are going to be up the creek, and they're going to have to take off the Mai, Trumas and Meisrus, Misafek, or at least Meiser, Misafek on their Challah. Now, Rabbi Yosha, here's the kasha. Rabbi Yosha. The Gemara asks, wait a minute, this seems to be the antithesis of Rabbi Yosha's Shita elsewhere. Talmon Amar in Eretz Yisrael, who says, Emas Kochim, the fear of Kochim, Olav is upon the Amoritz. Vein are nice saying, L'Kohen, Dover Shena Mesukon. He's not going to give the Kohen something which is not rectified. In other words, in Eretz Yisrael, Takeh, a Kohen doesn't have to be afraid that the Challah he has not been properly tight. That it's the Mai, because an Amoritz doesn't give a Kohen something which is the questionable. He has Moicha. He's afraid to give a Kohen something questionable. So the Kohen Amarachein Tapachov Vavam Aleph asks the Gemara, so what about here? Why here don't we say the same thing? That even in Syria we should apply the same principle. Require the Amaratzim, require Demai, require one to take off Demai off of grain in Syria. Hi, what about the Chal the Kohanim get? Shouldn't be a problem, because we assume the Amoritz is going to fix up the stuff which goes to the Kohen.
They're further removed. The Yamaratzim are further removed from the
you know, it would be a good answer. I'm not sure whether the Gemara doesn't give that, right? But the Gemara does not give that answer. The Gemara says, I'll tell you why. Also, I'm afraid. You're right. Even in Chutz La'aretz, an Amoritz has Moira. He's afraid to give the Kohen something which isn't rectified. Problem is, Amoratzim are afraid to give something which is rectified to the Kohen, but Amoratzim are a little bit thick. They're not so bright. Otherwise it wouldn't be Amoratzim. So therefore they might end up giving to the Kohen the wrong challah, because remember there are two. They might give the Kohen the challah which is supposed to be burnt, as opposed to the challah which is supposed to be given to the Kohen. And being klutzes, they might have rectified the challah to give to the Kohen, but not the stuff which is supposed to be burnt. And then give that stuff which is supposed to be burnt to the Kohen. So in that way, the whole thing is going to be a major mix-up, We're going to have a problem in that on the one hand, they did rectify some of their challah, but they gave the wrong challah to the Kohen, and the Kohen's going to be eating stuff which is not properly tithed. Okay, so that's what he says here. I'm afraid that it's also shiur nice in law is going to give him the one that's supposed to go to the fire. Rabbi Mana. So Ramana said, you know what, nice try, but I don't like your answer. You know, the Gemara does give you your answer later on. I forgot. The Gemara does give you your answer later on. I knew it somewhere. Now, so first Ramana pushes off the Gemara's previous answer. Ramana, lo tan Rabbi Yosha, that won't work. Lo tan Rabbi Yosha means, did not Rabbi Yosha say, El me'ati yochushu akwanim al chalosan? In other words, the Kohanim have to be afraid about their challah, Rabbi Yosha said. You're saying that the Kohanim have a problem because they might get the wrong challah. The challah is supposed to go to the fire. But that's how Rabbi Yosha was concerned with. Rabbi Yosha was concerned with their challah, the Kohanim's challah, which was coming to them, that it would be improperly tithed. So the potential problem which you're raising of this the mix-up is not the problem which Rabbi Yosha was telling us. So we'll have to go back to how to answer the question later on, and more ultimately we'll come to your answer. I don't know why I forgot. More later on comes and says that there's a difference between the fear and Eretz Yisrael and the fear of Chutz La'aretz. But anytime we have an intermission here, somebody who buys from a baker or isha, or from a woman, she is making challah, making bread to sell in the marketplace. You know what? He's got to take off meiser from the challah as if it's the mai. Now, so we're talking about here. This is talking about a kohen who's buying challah. I don't know exactly why he's buying challah. I don't understand exactly what's going on here. But we're saying that somebody who buys challah has to set aside from the challah he bought meiser, which is here called challah stmai. Now I'm assuming this is speaking about Eretz Yisrael, because the Chutz La'aretz we just said before, this is not relevant, right? But let's see how the Gemara develops. If you bought the self-same challah from a balabas, from Yisarech Etzlo, and you're a guest by him, the Gemara is going to explain that in a minute, and it's tzarech lafish chalas t'mai. And we assume that the challah is taken off of properly tight grain, and therefore you don't have to take off from the challah which you receive. Meiser Sheni, Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni. Rabbi Yoina, B'Shem Rabbi Chananya, B'Chavron D'Rabbana, Rabbi Yoina, named Rabbi Chananya's friend. The rabbi said, B'Misarech Etzel Lisoso. That's only where you're a guest, not where you're buying the challah from him. If you're a guest, I guess you're a kohen, and you're a guest, and you get challah from him, so you can assume that it's tithed properly, but not when you buy. Furthermore, I'm Rabbi Yoina, v'hein sharoso megable etzacher. This is only in a case where you saw that the owner of the inn where you're staying, your balabas, went to another person who's a chaver to knead his dough. Because then I can assume that the chaver who kneaded his dough took off the challah properly. And therefore it's okay. Cheskas balabatim. Now, another point. The cheskas balabatim is surya einot tzarech lafish chalas tvai. When you're in Syria, if you get any kind of dough, even the dough from the baker or the dough from the woman who sells, you don't have to take off from your challah which you receive to my meiser misafik. Why is that? Because they're very good odds, very good, though not perfect odds, but they're very good odds that the grain itself came from a Syria, came from a goy. So even if the grain comes to the goy, you're still not exempt from challah, because what makes challah? What makes the chiyuv of challah? The kneading of the dough, regardless of who grew it, right? But for the mai, meaning on the meiser, that we can assume you're exempt from. So therefore, we said previously that when you're taking dough from a woman who's selling or a baker, you must take off. Again, not taking dough, you're buying the challah. You're a Kohen. Again, I don't understand exactly the scenario, but you're a Kohen who's buying the challah. So you must take off the mai from the challah. That's only in Eretz Yisrael, where it's quite likely that this was grown in a Jewish field, and therefore it's chayiv and meiser. But when it's in Syria, where it's most likely that it was grown in a non-Jewish field, you don't have to take off from the challah, which you as a Kohen have now received. Any meiser, we assume, was done properly.
It was a Jewish sharecropper and a Goyish.
Yeah, but it's a mute. It's a minority. It's a minority, and besides that, it's only the Rabbanan. So it's a mute, and the Rabbanan, so we're not going to be machmir for sure now. Okay? Says Gemara, Im yodeh shro mechansel mishalo. However, you're not completely off base. If you know that this guy who's selling the dough, most of what he makes is from what he collected himself, because he owns a field or he has a sharecrop or whatever the case may be. So then in that case, even in Syria, from the challah, you have to take off the mai because maybe it wasn't properly tied previously. Rabbi Boon Bar Chia boy. So asked the Gemara, Rabbi Boon Bar Chia, this came back a question from before. Rabbi Boon Bar Chia asked, well, is this not arguing Rabbi Yeshua? Because what Rabbi Yeshua said before, that whenever you get dough from an Amoritz, we assume challah from an Amoritz, you assume he properly tithed it, because challah is afraid, Amoritz is afraid to give it to you if it's not properly tithed. He doesn't give it to a Kohen unless it's properly tithed. So now the Gemara gives you your answer. Ramana said, "Kam ba'oretz, kam b'chutz la'oretz." In Eretz Yisrael, they're afraid. They make sure to give challah which is properly rectified. In the chutz la'aretz, they're not so afraid, and they give lousy challah. Okay? There's no intention there. Okay, says Gemara further. Rabbi Chura Markini Mastisa. This is the way to read our Mishnah. What's considered to be chutz la'aretz in halacha? Migziv. Oh, what's considered to be the area which those who came up from Egypt conquered, but not those who came up from Bavel. Mikziv ad Anor. From Kziv until the river, the Euphrates, in one direction. Kziv Amnom until from Kziv till Amnom in another direction. So one of them is northwest, northeast, and the other is due north. Okay? So those are two things. Okay? Says the Gemara, Tani Ezu Oretz Vezu Chutz La'oretz. What's Eretz Yisrael? What's Chutz La'oretz? Kosher Shaveh Mituvras Amnom V'Lifnim. Oh, you got one. Oh, great.
Yeah. Is that the only one? There's a better one, I think.
The reason that they built it, they have.
Yeah. Gewaldig. Map Aleph.
Okay, here at Map Aleph you have well, you have Kziv. That we see. Kziv is where the Kziv is down here somewhere. Right here. See Kziv?
East, west, north, south.
On the Mediterranean.
Mediterranean.
Okay, so Kziv, from Kziv.
It's above Ankara.
Yeah, from Kziv. Yeah, but on this map you have the whole Mitzrayim. From Kziv till Turei Amnon, which is any of these places here. There are various different opinions here in the margin. But the most northerly one is over here, Jebel Akra, which is right near the border with Turkey. See, it says here Turei Amnon. So from here, this is all Ole Mitzrayim. Mikzivad Amna.
Went that far north?
Yeah, that's what it says here. Yeah.
Well,
Um,
according to the first lesson.
Now, that's one direction. The other direction is from Kaziv to the Euphrates, and that's this, the Mikzivat Anor. So these are the two sections which we're describing. Beis Gimel on one, and Dalet on the other are the section of Olei Mitzrayim. Okay? So a kosher shaveh mituvrus Amnon, belief name. No, keep it out. Anything which was from the mountains of Amnon and towards the land is Eretz Yisrael. Mituvra of Olei Mitzrayim. Mituvras Amnon v'lachutz from Turus Amnon and out externally, that's Chutz La'aretz. Okay, Chava and Beis at the top. Hanisa Shabiyam islands. At Roya Kilu Chut Matur Mituvras Amnon and Nachem Mitzrayim. So you draw an imaginary line. Now, he drew the line here from Beirut. I don't know why. I guess because that's the lowest opinion of where, the most southerly opinion of where the northern boundary of Eretz Yisrael is. So you have a diagonal line on the map from Beirut to Wadi El Arish, which is understood to be Nachem Mitzrayim. Okay? So if you assume that, so anything with... Yeah.
That's not denial.
No, Nachem Mitzrayim, it's a big machlokas. Most assume that it's not the Nile. It's not as much further, right? So nobody conquered to the Nile. This is where Port Said is. So any island which is between the coast and that imaginary diagonal line, that's considered to be part of the land of Israel. Okay? From the line and inwards is Eretz Yisrael. And from the line out, that's Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi Yehuda Mer Koshu Neged Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda has a famous sheet that everything opposite Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. In other words, until the Atlantic, you draw a band out from the north, includes all of Cyprus, as you can see here, and a bound outward from the south, from Nachem Mitzrayim, and anything all the way up to the Rock of Gibraltar and beyond, to the Atlantic Ocean coast, is considered to be part of Eretz Yisrael. Shemad says, Ukvul Yam, as it says, the westerly boundary, V'yelachem Mayam HaGadol will be the Great Sea, the Mediterranean. Ukvul Zeh Yelachem Ukvul Yam, this will be the sea boundary for you. Shebetz Dodim Mayin, what about the areas in the sides, meaning north and south of that band? No, obviously they're excluded because you draw a line between Kafluria, which is the northern boundary of Eretz Yisrael, the same thing as Horahor or Turei Amnum. So you draw a line outwards from Kafluria, straight out, right, at Okeanos until the ocean. And Menachem Mitzrayim from Wadi El Arish, straight out at Okeanos. Mechuv Livnim from inside is Eretz Yisrael. So he, according to this opinion, you see that it's approximately from 30 to the 32nd parallel north to the 36th parallel north. You see the parallel lines? Kav Rochav, they're called. Okay, so you have anything which is going to hit between the 32nd and 3rd, even lower.
How do you see the numbers? Where do you see the numbers?
Kav Rochav 36 Ma'alot, Kav Rochav 35. Yeah. So it's not my brilliant cartography. Even though when I was young I always wanted to be a map maker, but that's not what it was. So anything between approximately 36th parallel and the 32nd parallel would be a little bit even subtly of that would be part of Eretz Yisrael. Okay?
Where do we have this Gittin?
In Gittin, yeah. We also had Yerushalmi and Shmias. But it's Bablis and Gittin. It's beyond the band, is considered to be Chutzarts. Amar Rabbi Yusta Bar Shunam, a little bit of a god here. Sheagira Galuyas Turas Amnom when they come on Kibbutz Goluyos, so it seems that they didn't think they were going to come by airplane. Little did they know. But when they get to Turei Amnon, when they get to the northern boundary, Henasidos Lomar Shira, they will start singing. That's why they went out loud plains land. They say Heveinu Shalom Aleichem. Should have eyes. It says Tashuri, you will sing. Literally, Tashuri means to perceive or to view. But here we darshan Tashuri, you will sing Merosh Amanah from the top of the Ammona mountains, which are the northern boundary of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, now let's talk about the other boundary of Eretz Yisrael. East Tani. There's some say, there's some Tanaim hold, Hayardin Eretz Yisrael, the Jordan River is part and parcel of Eretz Yisrael. Now, what do we care about the river itself? So I would say for the islands, if there are islands in the Jordan River. But he brings down another nafkamina is for bridges. Now, who cares if the bridge is Eretz Yisrael? Nothing's growing on the bridge. So he says for Ma'aser Behema, the animals on the bridge join to the animals in Eretz Yisrael. Now you're chayiv in Ma'aser Behema even in Chutz La'aretz, not just in Eretz Yisrael. But Behemas in Chutz La'aretz are not mitzdarif to Behemas which are in Eretz Yisrael. They don't join together. It doesn't cross the river. So therefore the question is, what's the status of an animal on the bridge in the middle of the Jordan River? East Tani Yadei Eretz Yisrael, some say the Jordan is part of Eretz Yisrael. East Tani, those say Yardim Chutz La'aretz, the Jordan River is part of Chutz La'aretz. East Tani, there are Tanoim who say, you learn Hayardin Gvul B'Vnei it's a boundary unto itself. So take your pick. Anything you say is correct. Okay?
As long as you get the water rights.
Well, that's what you're doing. Ma'adam Yardim Eretz Yisrael, he says that the Jordan is part of Eretz Yisrael. It says in Chumash, V'Arava V'Yarden Ugvul. It says the Arava, which is the land right near the Jordan, and the Jordan itself, and then the boundaries beyond the Jordan. Ma'adam Yarden Chutz La'aretz, he says that the Jordan is part of Chutz La'aretz. Hayarden Yigbolo Solapas Kedma. It says the Jordan itself, in Pasuk in Yeshua, it says the Jordan itself is the boundary on the western side. He who says that the Jordan is a status unto itself, has to be in specific. It says asay in your Gemara, but it should say eser, meaning that there have to be, in order to, since the Jordan is, according to the Jordan by itself, there have to be on the bridge 10 animals in order to take Ma'aser Behema. Okay, Makam Echad means on the bridge per itself, because not mitzdarif near to Eretz Yisrael nor to Chutz La'aretz.
Neither map indicates that Jordan as a boundary. They all include Jordan as inside the property, even though they above it.
Yeah.
Where do you get this Mandona? Where does Mandona come from? Jordan might be a boundary.
I'm not sure. You're asking a good question. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe Aver Yardin is not a Chiv D'Oraisa, and therefore talking about, even though the Rabbanan, you have to take off Trumas and Maisus and Chal and Aver Yardin on the other side of the Jordan River, but maybe the Gemara is trying to describe what the boundaries are for the Oraisos. And that's why we're mentioning the Jordan, because in Chumash that's described as the Oraisa boundary. Maybe. I don't know. You're asking a good question. I don't know what the practice. I don't know per se what the difference is. Okay. Yeah.
Wild guess?
Yeah.
Before before Oli Bavel, after Oli Mitzrayim, I'm the David Amelech, Kibishov and Lav Shmei.
Yeah. Taidai Melch before, yeah, but it's still where Ruvain and Gad and Chatzi Menashe were there. They were in Ever Yardeh. So what was their status? The truth is, it could be it's just going Ma'aser Behema.
Maybe the whole question is only Ma'aser Behema, because Ma'aser Behema there's a din that Ever Yarden and Eretz Yisrael don't join together. Might not be a din at all in grain or grain products. Could be. All right. Says more further. Yarden Shotim B'Seven Nasin Lazen. Now this is something which I learned in 8th grade geometry. Not geometry. Geography. Geography is one of my favorite courses, and I was so upset that they didn't offer it in high school. So I was for geography in high school. So terrible. Sorry.
No, not in high school I went to. You have geography in high school? What? Was it it wasn't a Jewish high school, was it? No, Jewish high schools don't offer anything like that. Anything which makes you educated, they don't offer. They only offer core required courses and AP things. And do you know most Jewish high school? Can I once we're on the off topic for a moment? I want to make a mecha in the honor in mecha against MTA. MTA for the Masmidim here for the Masmidim. They let you take less high school courses and let you learn more. But what high school course they let you drop in order to learn more? Not physics, not English literature, Jewish history. It's a terrible avla. That's why we have such admiration when it comes to the history of Judaism, is because the schools, the yeshiva here is no difference. So the first course to go when people get to drop courses. So it's a geferlich avla, and that's why people are totally ignorant when it comes to Judaism. Not the only reason. And maybe TI, that makes sense, but not in yeah, it's very famous, sure. Yeah. So, all Jewish history I know I read on my own. So in any event, the thing is like this in geography, as you know, rivers don't really run a straight course. In Mississippi, a big river like that, but the small rivers they run in circles, gradually curving back and forth. And when the circle gets broad enough, so they cut a new path, and they go through a new riverbed, and the old riverbed is dry. So Shiloh, when the Jordan does that, it's cutting back and forth from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, right? So when the Jordan cuts a new path, so what happens to the old path? So now, so the Gemara says, the way the Gemara understands here, the Jordan cut a new path towards Eretz Yisrael, or a new path into Chutz La'aretz. So it took from Eretz Yisrael and gave to Chutz La'aretz, or vice versa. Mashenot, that which it takes as part of Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. Mashenot, that's what it relinquishes to Chutz La'aretz as part of Chutz La'aretz. So at any given time, according to this stage of the Gemara, you can have Eretz Yisrael state of flux, right? You give me back land to Jordan, actually, because of the Jordan River changing its path, right? So, says the Gemara, now wait a minute. Manakami, what are we talking about? Ima Makum Shoya Eretz Yisrael, Vinasa Syria. You're going to say that it becomes now Syria? Can't be. It has to retain its chazaka from Meiser and Shemitah. Meaning, what you just said is it makes no sense. If it wants Eretz Yisrael, it has to always be Eretz Yisrael. Even if the Jordan River changes its path, right? Can't give back any territory. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, and Rabbi Shimon Levi said, so what talk is the ramification of the Jordan changing course? Not for true Maisers and Shvius, rather Chazokos. Chazokos meaning here, the Chazok of 3 years. Allah is Chazok of 3 years is cannot be established if the original owner of the field is in one land and the current resident is in another land. The field is in Eretz Yisrael and the owner is in Chutz La'aretz. His opinion in Baba Basra, although we don't pass this way, it's opinion in Baba Basra that you can't establish chazak on that land because the owner is not in proximity there to know what's going on, nor is he in proximity to make an adequate protestation. So the Gemara says that which defines a separate land, meaning Aver Yarden, is determined by the course of the Jordan River at any given time. That becomes a new demarcation border and in its current and new riverbed. Okay? That's one case in which there's a ramification. Another case is the Biurin. Allah is during Shemitah, when there's no longer any more food for the animals, So you have to take out the food from your storehouse and put it out in fields for the animals. Well, animals don't cross rivers. Since they don't cross rivers, so each one of the lands is different, and therefore also. Somebody just knocked? I think there's a meeting upstairs. No, so you got in. No, that door is.
The other go that way.
Yeah.
So you can't get in.
Somebody from?
Let someone in.
What? I think there's an Arab meeting upstairs or something. Yeah.
Pass out your
Yeah.
ask them on which cover do they like best?
Yeah. So for biur, so each land is different because each land, the animals don't cross from one land to the other, right? They don't cross the Jordan River. So the time when the Jordan River cuts a new path, so that land will now go by biur, by the adjacent area to which the animals, from which and to which animals can come, and not by the prior schedule. Well, the Meiser Behema, of course, Meiser Behema, as we mentioned before, the river is the demarcation line from Meiser Behema. Rabbi Hila B'Shem Rabbi Shimon said, Ben Lakin said, you know what, you misunderstood the original statement. You were astounded when we said, Masha Nosan, Nosan, Masha Notal, Notal, then how can you lose the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, or regain it just by the Jordan River switching paths? You were right. But we're talking about back there's Vusha Moshach Ofar. We're talking about not where land mass changed, but where the Jordan took sediment. And the sediment receives the halacha of wherever it lands. Okay? So we're not talking about where the Jordan changed paths, actually. Where the Jordan moves sediment. Sediment moves from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, now becomes Chutz La'aretz, and sediment moves from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael becomes Eretz Yisrael, as opposed to specific areas which are always l'chumra part of Eretz Yisrael once they've been part of Eretz Yisrael in the past.
Does that mean according to this that we're saying that we don't care how it traverses it?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, but that's what we're saying. We don't care how it traverses, we go by the original pathway.
And presumably that's all marked out.
Yes, didn't you know?
Not 1 inch. Remember.
Okay. There are those who machmir and say that up to Amman. Who knows? Maybe the Jordan River won't touch them. We won't talk Amman. Okay. Shel ur yesh lo shiur shu dvar Torah. Now we mentioned this in the Mishnah already, of course, that in Syria, the challah which goes to the fire in all the area of Olim Mitzrayim, the area of Olim Mitzrayim, the challah which is going to go to the fire has got to have a shiur because that's the dvar Torah. In other words, it's primary. Now it's true the area of Olim Mitzrayim is not chayiv in challah b'zman hazeh d'oraisa, because it wasn't conquered by Oli Bavel, so the first kedusha fell off. Nonetheless, since it's a quasi doraisa, because this is a land which was once part of Eretz Yisrael, so therefore you have to be machmir and assume that it's challah, the primary challah is the one which goes to the fire, and therefore it has a shiur. Shel Kohen ain't no shiur. The one which goes to Kohen has no shiur. Shumi Divrein, because that's the second one, which is Mirabanan, Tap Chav Zayin and Menalf. V'yavish l'or v'lo yavish going. So it says, well, you know what? So just take off one and not two. Why are you hassling me? Just take off the one for the fire. Don't take off the one for the Kohen. So it says, no, I can't do that. Shlo yu omrim ra'inu truma tohayra nisrefes. People might say otherwise. People don't understand that Olim Mitzrayim, land of Olim Mitzrayim, is tamei as Chutz La'aretz because it was never fully reconquered, right? People don't understand that, and they'll see, hey, they're burning challah. It must be that challah may be burnt. And they won't understand that it's in the Chutz La'aretz. So therefore we have to have one challah which is burnt and one challah which is not. Okay, so that's smart, so do it the other way. V'yafish l'kohen v'lo yafish l'or. So give it only to the kohen, don't put any challah in the fire. This is for the other mistaken people. Shleyomi, the other people say, that we'll think Olim Mitzrayim is Dafka Chutz La'aretz and not Eretz Yisrael. And they'll say, hey, we know Truma Tmeir Necheles. We saw Truma Tmeir that it was eaten. Right? Because they'll only say that if there's only one Truma. Therefore, we make him do both. Since he takes up both, So since we see that the farmer's taking up both, so the bystander who sees both taking up both, they say, "Taka, what's going on here?" And already go and inquire and find out what exactly the status is. Now, what about in complete chutzlar? It's beyond these boundaries. Midivrayim. There, it's mamish to rabbanon. Muta. So there, we say the opposite. It's both the rabbanon. There's nothing which even akin to a raisa. Muta of l'rabas nechel is better to increase the one which gives the kohen the low l'rabas yisravis and not to increase the one which is burnt. Okay. Period. Nusugya. Of Rebbe Mod. It should be of Rebbe Yossi Modeba. Now this is here. There should be here. Put it back. Here there should be. Those are both for your Gemara, right? Okay. Now here, both Rabbi. Here there should be a header again. Excuse me. Rabbi Yossi said in our Mishnah that it's May Mace can eat chalas chutzlaretz. Remember that? It's May Mace. So the Mishnah then we're going to have to say yes, but not Zovin and Zovos and Nidos and Yoldos, because as we said yesterday, they are gushing, and that's not proper. So of Rabbi Yossi, it says Yuda, but it's a type, but should be Yossi. Of Rabbi Yossi Modiwa, he also concedes on that. Chomru b'tover shatuma yitzim megufo. It's more severe when the tumor is gushing forth from the body. Period. Now let's talk about some more kulos which apply to chal and chutzlaretz. Hor Rabbi Avo b'Batzra, Rabbi Yehuda Avo Baskel Batzra, which is in chutzlaretz in Jordan or Saudi Arabia. Shetricha rov. In order to cancel chal and chutzlaretz, all you need is a majority, a simple majority, not 100 to 1 like truma. Rabbi Yehuda teaches us that you can lean less than 100. That also teaches the flip side. By truma, wherever you have, even when it's batel, you have to take one up and give it to the kohen, in order that the shevet shouldn't lose. By chalos chutzlaretz, you don't have to do that. Okay? Since you don't need 101 to be batel, you also don't have to take off the 1 in 100 and give it to a kohen. Rabbi Zira said, I have a proof from our Mishnah that truma, challah, and chutzazim batel not in majority, in a 1-to-1 proportion. The Vilna says there in the Mishnah, a kohen can eat challah on the same table as a regular Yisrael eating plain drained bread. Maybe they get mixed up. So it must be that getting mixed up is not a problem, because it's but a 1-to-1 ratio. As long as it's a suffix, meaning I can eat the chalos chutzlaretz. Why is that? So it says more very interesting thing. I'm Rabbi Yechon. Oh, not yet, but we'll get there. I'm Rabbi Yechon. Rabbi Yechon says the rabbis in the Golus in Bavel would take up trumas u'maisros until trumas u'maisros. Manin and Rovin. Who are the Rovin? Turgum and Ayah. The ones who came literally means the translators, but here it means the people who transmitted the halacha from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. Now, right, so therefore we don't take off trumas u'maisros anymore in Bavel. Once upon a time they did. Now they no longer do so, because it leads to all sorts of confusion and difficulty and so on and so forth. Rabbi Yehuda, here goes a very big kula. Why, and this is why Chal should be bought to 1 and 1. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel said, Chal's chutzlaretz to Trumas chutzlaretz, Chal chutzlaretz to Truma chutzlaretz, they still took it off. You can eat the tevel and take off the Truma afterwards. Eat now, ask questions later. Which really is fundamentally means that the Chal chutzlaretz is not significant. So it's not significant, so that's why it's bought to 1 and 1. Okay? Right, Baba Shem Shmuel said, Lo chashu, even at the time when they still took off Truma Chutz La'aretz, Lo chashu Trumas Dogan to Yeshitza, they only did on stuff which is Mamish D'Oraisa, which is grain, grape juice, and olive oil. Rabbi Hillel Shem Shmuel said, Lo chashu Truma Bilvad. They also only took off Truma, not Meiser. They never took off Meiser Chutz La'aretz. Avali Okes. But in terms of vegetables, it should be afilu l'truma g'doyla choshen. They didn't even take off truma g'doyla, because vegetables are too far removed from the d'oraisa shiur. K'ador detani cha'ise ben akavia, like that which is price would say name isa ben akavia. Omer ma'isles li'rokes. Taking ma'isel of a vegetable means very misdrabana. Tani we learned Chalas hagoy ba'oretz. The chal of a goy in Eretz Yisrael. Goy takes of chal in Eretz Yisrael. Utrumas hagoy b'chutz la'aretz. The truma of a goy in chutz la'aretz. Modino, so we tell him, Reb Goy, Shein Tzorach, you don't gotta do it. If he does it anyway, it's a klutz. Veichel. We, any Yisrael, gets to eat it. Because even though we try to take off chal, it's a meaningless gesture. Interesting though, the truma of a goy in Eretz Yisrael is meaningful. And therefore the truma of the goy in Eretz Yisrael must go to a goy. That we mentioned already in Masechta Trumas.
Even if it's his land.
Even if it's the goy's land. Yeah. We brought down some pasuk or some limud for that, because grew in Eretz Yisrael, right. But not chal in Eretz Yisrael, only truma. Okay, but he said in the tennis the kol kohen. We learned that the challah in chutz la'aretz we give it to any kohen. Bein lekohen chaver, bein lekohen when it's kohen tam b'chocha, bein lekohen amaretz or kohen tam amaretz. Okay, yesh mem neisim la'anshei mishmar. Some of the matanos which we give to the people of the mishmar, which is serving the Beis Hamikdash that week. Yesh mem nitolim kol kohen. Some of the matanos we give to any kohen. Ha b'chores, a b'chor, which is brought as a korban. V'abikurim, and bikurim, which is brought to Yerushalmi La'anshei mishmar, goes to the people who are serving that week in the Beis Hamikdash. The shar kul chol kohen and everything else goes to any kohen you want. Rabbi Yirmiyah boy kumi Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked for Rabbi Zira. Minayin shecharomim la'anshei mishmar. How do the cherem? If a person makes us feel the cherem and it goes to the kohen, that it goes to the kohen who are serving that week in the Beis Hamikdash. Amar Leisi said, "I'll tell you," because it says kisadach cherem la kohen, la kohen, la kohen. Yeah, with the pasach. So, like the stei cherem, to the kohen will be the achuzah. Now we this we darshan achuzah atzma ma'ushetei la'anshei mishmar. If somebody loses his field at the end of Yovel because he was makdish it before Yovel and did not redeem it, so when Yovel goes out, Yom Kippur of Yovel, the field goes out, but not back to the person who was makdish it, but rather to the kohanim. Which Kohanim get it? The people who are right then in the Beis Hamikdash that week. Because it says La Kohen with the Pasach. What does it mean La Kohen? To the Kohen. Who's the? The is those who are serving the Beis Hamikdash week. And since that's the case by Achuzah, we make it Gzeir Shava, and we apply that also to, it's not a Gzeir Shava, it's a Hekesh. It's a parallel to Stei Acherem. It's mentioned the same Pasach. That if a person makes a field of cherem, so it also goes to the kohen serving that week in the Beis Hamikdash. V'aksiva, it doesn't say v'nasan tapach of zayim abeis v'nasan la kohen hazrol l'chaim akeva. It says give to the kohen hazrol l'chaim akeva, which are the matanos v'chulin matal anshe mishmar. So that also go to the people in the mishmar. Rabbi Yachab b'shem Rabbi Avo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Kol cherem kodesh kadoshim. No, it says what goes to the people of the mishmar. Anything which is kodesh kadoshim hu la'Hashem. Ma kodesh kodshim la'anshei mishmar. Just like any kodesh kodshim goes to people who are serving. Av charovim la'anshei mishmar. So to charovim go to the people who are serving, but not anything else. Not Tzrol Chaim Akiva. So it's got to be that it says la kohen and that it's kodesh. Zrol Chaim and Keva, which are not Kodesh, don't go to the Kohanim who are serving the Beis Hamikdash that week. So ask where Me'ato have a metaltlin. There's cuts of Cherem by metaltlin as well. So let's say that the metaltlin, Cherem and metaltlin also goes to the Kohanim serving the Beis Hamikdash. The Tani, and yet we know that's not true. The Tani learned to the Brisa. Ma'abein karkos metaltlin, what's the real estate and movable property. Elishkar kos lanchim mishmar. Kos go to the people who have that watch. And the movable property goes to any kohen. So Rabbi Yossi Bei Rabbi Bun said, I'll tell you why. There are two things which go to the mishmar. Ishe Hashem, the korbanos, the fiery stuff, and nachloso, anything which is a nachla. What is a nachla? An inheritance. But what kind of inheritance? A real estate inheritance. So only real estate and korbanos go to the kohanim and the mishmar. Ma'ishim lanchei mishmar, just like that which goes to the fire goes to be in the mishmar, so too the nachlos go to the lanchei mishmar. Okay. Esim bar matanos nidu l'Aaron hakol ubanav. Aaron and his kids got 24 matanos. Eser mikdash 10 in the Beis Hamikdash. Ar Yerushalayim 4 in Yerushalayim. Eser Megulin 10 outside Yerushalayim. Elish Mikdash, where they get the Mikdash? Chatos, v'asham, v'zivchei shamei tzibur, Yerushalmi, which brought by the congregation on Shavuos, the two lambs, so it only goes to Kohanim. V'chatos of, v'asham tolui, v'log shem shem tzor, the oil it brings, u'shtei alechem, 2 breads on Shavuos, v'lechem aponim, on every Shabbos, v'shorim menachos left over from Minacha and Omer, those all go to the Kohen, that's 10. Trust me, I didn't count them either. V'elam Yerushalayim, what are they, which ones in Yerushalayim go to the Kohen? Habchoros, right? Vabikurim. Now, sometimes the Bchoros obviously is supposed to go to Beis Hamikdash if they're korbanos, but if they're not korbanos, they're just they can just be given to the Kohen. Yerushalayim is lav dafka. It doesn't necessarily mean in Yerushalayim. It means it means if it's a bechor, it should be bringing it up to the sacrifice, and then it got to move. Okay, but certainly the bechor is outside Yerushalayim as well. Vabikurim, which are brought up to Yerushalayim. Vamurim min atoida, and that which is taken from a toda, from the carbon, so that can be eaten throughout Yerushalayim, just like shlomim. Male nazir, the part which goes to the kohen from the lamb of a nazir, which can be eaten throughout Yerushalayim. Barosim mukdashim, and the hides of karbanos. The hides of karbanos really can go outside Yerushalayim. They can make them the shoes and wear them anywhere. The reason why I'm mentioning them is because they can go outside the Beis Hamikdash, unlike the karbanos themselves that you mentioned previously. Those are Ve'elo and Shemekvulin, and what are the ones which are in outside Yerushalayim altogether? Hatruma, Trumas Meiser, the Challah, Hazra, L'chaim Akeva. The ratios are against for shearings. The Ger Lagarin, when a ger was stolen from, and then the ger dropped dead without any heirs, it goes to a Kohen. Opinion Ben, Opinion Pet the Chamor, the redemption of a firstborn donkey. V'charamim, Usteachuzo, all these things are 24 matonos, which go to Kohen. We'll stop here for this evening. Yeah, this is not specifying which Kohen gets it, but it's outside Yerushalayim, because the field is anywhere in Eretz Yisrael. That's all we're saying. Okay.